Welcome to part 3 of double bass for the electric bassist. This chapter is all about the fingering hand. This is the most important part of the transition from bass guitar to the double bass. The fingering hand is also the most difficult to get right from the start. If we simply treat the double bass as a bass guitar, we'll quickly be able to play familiar lines and licks, but we'll have a hard time sounding like a proper double bass and evolving our technique and musicality further. Also, for the absolute majority of us, the intonation will be less than perfect and will probably never become optimal unless we play the double bass on its own premises. The standard scale length for a bass guitar is 34 inches. Yes, 35-inch scale is also very normal these days, but the full-size double bass has a scale of around 42 inches. So it should be rather self-explanatory why it needs its own basic fingering system. To start, let's look at the hand position on the electric bass and compare this to that of the double bass. As you can see, one of the main differences is how the arm is extended from the body. On the bass guitar, our upper arm is mostly more or less in contact with our upper body. It's not locked to it, of course, but the fact that the neck of the bass extends out from our body makes it most practical that our upper arm is more or less parallel to the body and the forearm extends out towards the instrument's neck. You'll have a slight curve of your wrist for the fingers to come around the neck. Your thumb will be more or less parallel to the second finger, somewhere in the middle of the back of the neck. On the double bass, on the other hand, with its vertical neck, the arm position has to be different. The elbow is lifted out from the upper body, around 45 degrees, give or take, and the curvature of our wrist should be slightly less than that on the electric bass. Also, while it's considered perfectly okay to have a backbent thumb on the back of the electric bass's neck, this is not advisable on the double bass, as we need all the mobility we can get due to more position shifts. And a locked out joint does exactly that, it locks the thumb. Now for the most important technical difference, the fingering system. On the double bass, we do not play one finger per fret in the lower positions. If you have huge hands, I guess you can make it, but there are so many stylistic elements also of playing with the technique I'm about to show you that I highly recommend you learn it. It's a good idea to keep coming back to this video during the next few weeks and study the hand and arm positions as well as the scales we'll be going through. In the lower positions we use 3 fingers, first, second and fourth, or first, third and fourth. I use first, second and fourth because then I can help the strength of the pinky with the third finger. So in the lowest position on the F, I would play F with the first finger, F sharp with the second finger, and then the G with the fourth finger, combined with the third finger. You might see me varying from time to time and using the third finger down there, but I highly recommend you choose either way in the beginning. So, needless to say, you'll be shifting more and also you'll be thinking more about which notes are under your fingers at any given time. Which is massively a good thing for us electric bass players. It's kind of our get out of jail card from the locked position playing of our past. I mean, my fingerboard totally exploded when I started studying the 3-finger technique of the double bass. You just have to know what you're playing. You can't rely on shapes on the fingerboard and simply learn a pattern and move it around. It doesn't work like that. When we move into middle positions, where our first finger is around the C sharp or D on the G string, you can switch to a 4-finger system if you want. You can also continue the 3-finger system up to the thumb position. It's up to you. I found it natural and logical to switch to a 4-finger system because of my background on the bass guitar and its 1 finger per fret system. One last very important detail about the difference between the instruments is that the tradition on the bass guitar is to try to avoid too many open strings, as they sound too different from closed notes. This is entirely opposite on the double bass, especially in walking bass lines. We love open strings. We actually have to use them to play meaningful scalar fingerings. Also, the open strings are an integral part of the jazz double bass's sound. A walking bass line on an F blues with no open strings sounds completely wrong. You need the resonance of the open strings in there. Let's start by learning 1 octave scales in F, B flat, G and C major. The F major scale, we start with the first finger on the low F. We stretch our pinky together with the third finger and we actually push down both the middle fingers to support the G. Then we play an open A, first finger on the B flat, and then the same with the C. We push down all the fingers and open D, second finger on E, with the support of the first finger behind, and then fourth finger on the F. Going down. So try to remember to give support to keep the fingers pressed down as you play with the higher fingers. B flat scale is basically the same fingering. Not basically, but it is the same fingering. First finger B flat, fourth finger with support from the other fingers on the C, open D, first finger E flat, fourth finger with the support, open G, second finger on A, and fourth finger on the B flat, and going down again. Now, the G major, we are shifting our hand half a position, 1/2 note. So we will be, this is our first new position actually. So this first position is in classical terminology called the half position. It is because there's a half note from the open string to the F, so it's half position. We shift now 1/2 step upwards. We move our thumb from the back of the neck half a step. So we have the F sharp under the first finger, but we are starting our G with our second finger, but we are holding down the F sharp. And then we have open A, first finger on B natural, second finger on C, open D, first finger on E, fourth finger on F sharp, and then open G. Going back down, G, F sharp with the fourth finger, remembering to hold the lower fingers, first finger on E, open D, second finger on C, first finger on B, open A, second on G. I use second, I suggest you use second. If you have decided to use the third, then substitute my second for your third, obviously. C major scale is similar fingering, but we get even one more position shift at the end to get the top C. So we start in the same position, first position, where we have the first finger on the B natural, second finger on C. Open D, E, first finger, F, second finger, open G, first finger on A. Now we shift to the second finger on the B and fourth finger on C. This is going to seem a little bit awkward and backward for us electric players at first, but bear with me, I'll explain this soon. We're trying to not make a position shift to play one note and then shift back. So if we would keep this position all the way up to the B, we would have to shift now from the fourth finger up to the fourth finger on the C. This is never ideal, and then we're shifting back down. So we're getting two position shifts in succession with only one note on the second position. So we change this up, so we shift here to the second finger on the B and fourth on the C. To continue, let's look at the shift. This is hugely important as it's something we'll be doing very frequently. There's a theory that you should never make a shift to play just one note before shifting again. Always get two notes in each position, at least. There's always exceptions to every rule, but this is a good basic rule to think about. So in this C major scale, we would play the scale up with the open strings and end up with the A and the B on the first and fourth finger on the G string. And then shift up to the C on the first finger, and then the D on the fourth, returning back the same way. A shift in slow motion should be something like this. When shifting up, I visualize the shift before it comes. I kind of roll my hand on the fourth finger B upwards towards the position of the first finger on the C. It's a connected, fluid motion between the fingers and the forearm. This is important. Your fingers and forearm should never be static or stiff. They should always be working together. As a matter of fact, you should note the position of your arm when you play the C with the first finger. Where is it positioned relative to the bass's body? So, compare it to the lower position, which the arm is here, to when you have the C with your first finger, the arm has moved a few centimeters down. And during the shift, transfer the forearm from one to the other. You can kind of lead with the arm while rolling your hand. It helps to visualize this also. I'm overdoing it, of course, with the rolling and everything, but this is it's a combination of how it happens and how it looks in my mind when I'm doing it. The next logical step is to find our anchor in the middle positions. If you put your thumb in the heel of the neck, right up here, where it slopes to meet the body, you should easily be able to find the note D on basses with a D neck with your first finger. You can check it with a harmonic. Find out how it feels when you put the thumb in the heel and play the D. This will be like an anchor position for you in the middle positions. The D, the note never moves and you should be able to hit it dead on every time. Try it a few times, practice this over and over. Put the thumb in the heel and find the D. I should add that some basses have a so-called E flat neck, and they are built so that when you have the thumb in the heel, the natural note to find is the E flat. You'll just have to adjust your technique from that. You can also get help from a violin builder or luthier to rebuild the saddle or the nut and get it moved further up the neck to move this point so you get a D neck. It's very logical to have the fifth on your first finger. So like I mentioned, from this position, it's quite logical to experiment with a 4-finger technique, if you're used to that from the electric bass. So that will be D, D sharp or E flat, E, F, in one position. So chromatic from the open G up into this position would be open, 1, 2, 4, shift, 1, 2, 4, shift to the heel, 1, 2, 3, 4. To conclude this part, let's look at some extended versions of the scales we practiced earlier. They will go all the way into this heel position area and back. So the F major, we start as before with our 1st and 4th open strings, 1st and 4th, open 2nd, 4th, open G, we continue, 2nd on the A, and now we shift already to the B flat, and you'll understand in a second. So you make a position here with the B flat and the C, and then you shift into this anchor position where you have the thumb in the curve. For the D, the E, and the F. And going down, we use the same positions. Shift down to the C on the 4th finger, B flat on the 1st finger. Now shift so you get the A on the 2nd finger, because now you're back into this half position. B flat major will share the same start and obviously basically share the same fingering. We are not going any higher than the F, so B flat, C. And we're shifting here again. Shifting to the anchor. Now we have the E flat obviously. Then going down the same way. Shift and shift to half position. 2nd finger on A. Next up is a G major scale. So we start down here in 1st position, 1st finger on the F sharp. Like before, we play up with the open strings. And now we shift this half position. And then we get the thumb in the anchor. E. We're not playing any higher because we have to have the F sharp. Shift back. Shift back. So you see the logic here. This is one way of playing this, of course. You can have these early shifts in different ways, but since we are now practicing getting in and out of the anchor, then this is the most natural way of doing it. C major, same as before. Shift and shift up into the anchor position. We get the F, we go down, and then shift back into 1st position. I hope you got a lot out of this video. Please watch it several times while practicing and try out the different techniques and fingerings. If anything is confusing, feel free to write a comment in the comments below and I'll get right back to you on it. But I'm sure you'll get the idea of the open strings and the 3-finger technique in the lower positions in no time at all. I'll see you in the 4th and final video for some stylistic techniques very typical of the double bass, but also transferable to the electric bass. Remember the synergies I mentioned in video 1? We can learn from the double bass, we can bring elements that we learn here back to the electric bass and vice versa. I'll also include some walking bass lines on standard progressions for you to study. So, I'll see you there and good luck.